He was a hero with a bright dream, but a tragedy stole his light. What happens when the pain is so overwhelming that the only way out is to deny reality itself? Get ready to dive into the mind of a character who, in his quest for a world without suffering, chose a dark path, challenging everything we believed about peace and illusion. In the vibrant setting of Konoha, the Hidden Leaf Village, a young ninja named OBITO UCHIHA harbored a heart full of altruism and a grand dream: to become Hokage, the supreme leader of the village. From an early age, he was seen as a good-hearted boy, a bit clumsy, but with an unwavering spirit. Unlike his prodigious UCHIHA clan peers, OBITO demonstrated a purity of intention and unquestioning loyalty to his friends Kakashi and Rin, and to his sensei Minato Namikaze, the future fourth Hokage. His passion for helping others and his determination to overcome his own limits were striking traits common in many young people with high ideals. This environment of camaraderie and challenges, where teamwork and mutual protection were essential values, was the cradle of a promising future for OBITO. He grew up in a village that, despite its flaws and internal conflicts, sought peace, and his goal was to actively contribute to its construction. Developmental psychology shows us that the formation of ideals and aspirations at this stage of life is fundamental for building individual identity and purpose. OBITO saw himself as a protector, someone who would build a better future for everyone, where no one would have to suffer as they did in times of war. He lived by the ninja code, which valued the lives of comrades above all else, a principle that would become a tragic irony in his life. But there was something no one saw coming, a seed of disillusionment planted in the near future. The turning point in OBITO's life was an unimaginably brutal event. During the Third Great Shinobi World War, on a dangerous mission, he was severely injured in a rock slide and presumed dead by his own comrades. However, fate had other plans, and he was secretly rescued and treated by Madara Uchiha, a legendary and shadowy figure who saw him as a pawn in his grand schemes. Slowly recovering, OBITO yearned to return to his friends and the village he loved so much. The true shock, however, occurred when he, still convalescing and weakened, tried to return to the battlefield and witnessed a devastating scene. Rin, the girl he deeply loved and who was the pillar of his motivation, losing her life at the hands of Kakashi, his best friend and rival. This event, of extreme violence and psychological trauma, was the trigger that shattered his reality into pieces. The image of Rin fading away before his eyes in a chaotic war setting unleashed severe post-traumatic stress disorder. For psychology, witnessing such an impactful event can lead to a complete disorganization of perception, where the mind seeks ways to cope with unbearable pain. OBITO not only witnessed Rin's demise, but interpreted the event as irrefutable proof that the ninja world was a cruel farce, a place where his ideals of peace and protection were mere illusions. From that moment on, OBITO's gentle soul began to transform. The internal conflict between his old, pure ideals and the new, devastating reality became a silent and overwhelming battle, laying the groundwork for a completely distorted worldview. And it was there that everything began to crumble, leading him down a path of no return. With Rin's irreparable loss and the feeling of betrayal by reality, OBITO's mind began to restructure itself around a new, dark truth. The pain was so overwhelming that he sought a radical way out, a justification for the absurd suffering he had witnessed. Madara Uchiha, with his vision of an illusory and perfect world, found fertile ground in OBITO's fragile mind, which was desperate for answers. Madara's words about a world of dreams, where pain simply wouldn't exist, resonated deeply, filling the void left by disillusionment. OBITO came to believe, with a disturbing conviction, that reality was a cruel farce, an endless cycle of anguish and inevitable losses. He adopted the identity of Tobi, and later revealed himself as Madara to the shinobi world. disguising his true identity and manipulating events from behind the scenes, orchestrating tragedies and wars. His new way of thinking was based on the premise that the only way to achieve genuine and lasting peace was through a global illusion, the Moon's Eye Plan. This plan aimed to trap all of humanity in an eternal dream, where each individual would live their perfect reality, free from any kind of misfortune, loss, or conflict. In psychology, this can be seen as an extreme form of reality denial and a pathological defense mechanism to cope with unbearable trauma. It's as if the mind, unable to process pain and helplessness, creates an alternative, even if it's a collective and coercive fantasy. He saw this not as an act of domination, but as the only way to save everyone from what he considered the true calamity of existence. It wasn't irrational madness. It was a kind of cold calculation, a meticulous engineering of pain to save everyone from themselves. Obito's words often alluded to the futility of hope and the illusion of peace, revealing his deep conviction. But the true monster was still dormant, waiting for the right moment to emerge. Obito's conviction in his Moon's Eye Plan led him to commit acts that would mark his point of no return, sealing his fate as a central figure in the conflict. The manipulation of other characters, such as Nagato and the Akatsuki, the orchestration of conflicts between nations, and the instrumentalization of entire nations were merely cold, calculated steps to achieve his ultimate goal. His worldview became completely distorted. He no longer saw individuals with their complexities and emotions, but rather disposable pieces in a larger game where pain was the only constant and illusion the only viable solution. He justified every brutal action, every life taken, as a necessary step towards a greater good. Morality and ethics were radically redefined in his mind. For Obito, the ends justified the means, as he believed he was acting for the greater good, for a peace he considered unattainable in the current reality. He rationalized his actions as unavoidable and necessary acts to save humanity from its own suffering, from a vicious cycle of conflict and loss that he considered intrinsic to existence. This rationalization is a defense mechanism where one creates logical, but false, justifications for unacceptable behaviors. This leads us to a disturbing dilemma. What if, in his own disturbed logic, he was right? If reality is indeed a cycle of incessant anguish, would illusion be a form of liberation? The lingering question that haunts us: how far can a person go in the name of peace that only exists in their mind, sacrificing the freedom and reality of billions? Obito crossed a line that few would dare to cross, and the echo of his choices would reverberate throughout the shinobi world. Delving deeper into Obito's mind, we realize that his logic, though distorted and morally questionable, possessed an unsettling internal coherence. He did not act out of inherent malice, but out of a blind and unwavering conviction that he was fixing the world, eliminating the primary source of all suffering. His journey can be meticulously analyzed through cognitive psychology, which studies how people process information, interpret events, and consequently, form beliefs and thought patterns. The overwhelming trauma of Rin's loss completely restructured his cognition, making him interpret every subsequent event through a lens of deep despair, cynicism, and disillusionment. His mind became a fortress of defenses against pain. His pursuit of an illusory world, the infinite Tsukiyomi, is, in a way, an extreme manifestation of a fundamental human desire for security, control, and, above all, the absence of pain. However, Obito pushed this to the limit, choosing to sacrifice the freedom and complexity of reality in exchange for the guarantee of an existence free from any suffering. We could compare him, in some aspects, to real cases where individuals, after significant traumatic experiences, develop a radically different worldview, seeking absolute control over their lives and environment, even if it means manipulating reality or isolating themselves from it. The difference is, that Obito sought to impose this solution on everyone. His actions reflect a complex mixture of hopelessness, a deep desire to protect those he loved, and an inability to accept the inherent imperfection of life. For him, the Moon's Eye plan was not an escape, but the only way to achieve true salvation. It was not irrational, disorganized madness. It was a cold calculation, an extreme and calculated response to a pain he considered unbearable and widespread. The impact of Obito Uchiha's actions profoundly shaped the ninja world, leaving an indelible mark on history and collective consciousness. The Fourth Great Shinobi World War, orchestrated by him and Madara, was an event of epic proportions that left deep scars on every nation and countless lives, forcing the unity and cooperation of nations that were once bitter enemies. Although his grand plan of mass illusion was thwarted at the last moment, the legacy of his pain, his disillusionment, and his desperate search for artificial peace remained, echoing through future generations. His story invites us to a profound philosophical and psychological reflection. Who are we to judge someone's overwhelming pain? And to what extent can the pursuit of an ideal, however noble its origin, lead us down such dark and destructive paths, sacrificing freedom and reality in the name of an imposed utopia? Obito was not just a one-dimensional villain. He was a complex mirror of humanity itself, of its capacity to idealize, to love deeply, and, at the same time, its extreme vulnerability to anguish and trauma. His journey is a poignant warning. True peace cannot be imposed, nor found in an artificial illusion, but rather built through the courageous confrontation of reality, with all its joys, sorrows, and inherent challenges. The cycle of pain he tried to break with an illusion was ultimately overcome by the acceptance of reality and unity. But in a world where pain is a constant, perhaps, he was not the last to tread a path of disillusionment, seeking an extreme solution to human suffering. Obito's trajectory forces us to confront the fragility of the human mind in the face of extreme loss and disillusionment. He was the personification of love that transformed into despair, and of idealism corrupted by overwhelming anguish. His story is a somber reminder. In his quest for a world without suffering, he paradoxically created a scenario of great affliction, proving that true peace only flourishes in shared reality, not in the denial of it.